The UFL is going strong on these job offerings that they are hiring for. Part of the, I guess you could say, almost the vamping up of marketing and doing what the league needs to do to essentially market the league heading into 2026. Now, of course, yesterday we talked about that Houston Roughnecks, and we've talked about it for the past couple days now, that they have posted jobs for the Houston Roughnecks, which would lead a lot of people to believe that they are keeping the team. That, to me, 100% says that, and even more so this morning when they have posted 2 additional jobs to the Houston Roughnecks for the 2026 season. And again, these aren't just some random jobs they're hiring for. This essentially is some pretty big jobs. So let's talk about this, because there's some eye-opening things as well that they posted yesterday, which confirm what locations essentially are staying and what jobs they're hiring for. So we'll go through the list here. So St. Louis, Missouri, the manager for team marketing, St. Louis Battlehawks. I think we briefly talked about position for the Battlehawks yesterday. Then you have the new one, which is manager team marketing, Houston Roughnecks. Digital, creative video, and production, Arlington, Texas, for the league itself. Director, league, and field marketing is a remote job for the league. Manager team marketing, Columbus, Ohio. This one was posted yesterday. Manager team marketing for the DC Defenders, stationed in Washington, D.C. Director of digital marketing and media, posted yesterday. Senior manager partnerships, Columbus, Ohio, posted yesterday. Senior manager of partnerships, the Birmingham Stallions in Birmingham. Senior manager partnerships, Houston Roughnecks, Houston, Texas. That one was posted yesterday as well. Account executive, ticket sales and experience, Arlington for the Renegades in Texas. Account executive, ticket sales and experience, DC Defenders in DC. VP of team business operations, Houston Roughnecks. That's the one we essentially talked about yesterday. VP of team business operations, Birmingham Stallions. Account executive, ticket sales and experience, Houston Roughnecks in Houston. That was the one that initially brought the whole discussion up about the actual Houston Roughnecks or whatnot potentially staying in the league. Then we have the account executive team sales and experience for Birmingham, account executive team sales and experience for Columbus, Ohio, and then account executive ticket sales and experience for St. Louis. Again, all these jobs, most of them posted yesterday after we recorded the video. And again, to me, this is really showing that they are doing their effort to get these jobs. Now, this isn't new. Let's keep that in mind. This isn't like they are hiring all these jobs and, oh my gosh, they're doing so much in the realm of trying to get marketing together and stuff like that. These are jobs they've offered in the past. They did it for Memphis Showboats last year, Michigan Panthers, all these different teams. They were doing this last year. And to me, when you look at this, there is nothing, obviously, for the Memphis Showboats. There is nothing for the Michigan Panthers. And that really, again, solidifies and leads me to believe that those two organizations are not part of the future plan of the UFL, at least in 2026, because we do know that they got rid of all those people in those markets, despite, at least in Michigan, having the biggest increase in ticket sales and attendance and everything like that in marketing in the entire league. I think it was by 42% in the 2025 season. And they let all those people go. There's not anybody left in neither of those markets. Obviously, Memphis, we know, was a pretty underwhelming market, along with Houston. Let's not get that wrong. And I do feel that that'll kind of segue into my topic here, is basically what we're going to discuss, courtesy of UFL shadow on X, Panthers shadow to be exact, and a question that he or she, I don't know who runs the account, but would lead me to believe that potentially there was some issues with the UFL when James Larson and Mark Perry with UFL News Hub initially broke the story and reported about the relocation and basically the gutting of the USFL conference. Now, of course, with that being said, I still will go back real quick before we move forward that it's very eye-opening that there is no job positions opening for Michigan and Memphis. Like I said, to me that should be the behind the scenes way of looking at things, that those two markets are not going to be part of the UFL in 2026. Michigan could return in the future, as we talked about yesterday. But that leads me to this question and his theory, or their theory, should I say. James Larson and Mark Perry's relocation bomb impacted negotiations with new markets, raising red flags about the league's viability. This caused the league and Rapoli to announce him as the new co-owner in an attempt to save face and increase optimism about the league's future. So, okay, first and foremost, I did want to comment on some comments as well that were attached to this post and kind of go off that. So first and foremost, let's talk about what his theory is. That essentially James Larson and Mark Perry's relocation bomb completely basically raised red flags on new marketing and impacted the negotiation. Now, someone commented and said, I don't think a single person in a new market cared about a blog post. Rapoli signing on as a significant investor was a big deal and had clearly been in the works for a long time. Okay, so let's talk about that, because first and foremost, I personally don't agree with the first part of that I don't actually think a single person in a new market cared about a blog post. That is completely incorrect, because we do know that in at least Detroit and in Birmingham, local news media caught on to the stories and were actually at that point reporting it to people in those locations. I don't know about Houston Roughnecks. I don't know necessarily about Memphis. I didn't really hear anything about those two markets and local news reporting that those teams were gone. But I know for a fact that I saw numerous news stories in Birmingham on local news, numerous stories from like local news stations in Detroit and along the state of Michigan that reported those types of things that were happening, that, hey, we're potentially losing this. That was despite the fact I know some people on here 100% believe that Mike Rapoli was just screwing around with the Birmingham Stallions organization and that they really were not getting rid of it ever. I completely understand that to an extent, but, and I apologize, I just had a pop-up come up for my Wi-Fi clicking off here at the hotel, so had to get that clear real quick. But anyways, so essentially with that being said, I do not believe at all that did not have an impact. I think for new markets, I don't even think that was a problem either, and I'll talk about why I don't think that. So the part about Rapoli being brought on as the co-owner to save face, I don't know if I even buy into that either. I do think that the comment that was made that Rapoli signing on as a significant investor was a big deal and had clearly been in the works for a long time. I do agree with that. Now, personally, I don't think Mike Rapoli coming on was the biggest earth-shattering news ever, because we haven't really heard anything else following up to it. again, he was brought on. There was a couple news stories here and there throughout the sports world, whether it was NBC Sports, ESPN, these different sports organizations talked about it, but there really was nothing after that. He was on a few shows here and there, but it wasn't like mainstream media was really 100% going all in on it, and it become this big deal. Like originally, when Danny Garcia and Dwayne The Rock Johnson won the bid to buy the XFL out of bankruptcy, that was pretty big news that essentially it didn't go anywhere because they drug their feet and they didn't have a season in 2022 and waited till 2023. Marketing was superb, like not superb, but was like kind of across in the middle there for the XFL in 2023. They didn't do the best job, but essentially I think the UFL has done even like 20 times worse in the long run. But again, I think that this question, I don't know if it had a direct link to essentially with like it's hard to say, like the negotiations with new markets and stuff like that, because when you're really looking at the new markets, Columbus, Ohio was announced basically the same day that Mike Rapoli became this co-owner or whatnot, which would, again, still lead me to believe that he was working behind the scenes a little bit ahead of time and kind of came in there and they planned a date out that he was going to be talked about. I think the relocation bomb that dropped, I think that was, again, James Larson has gone back and talked about early reporting on that, not knowing all the facts and stuff like that. I didn't cover that article or piece on this channel. That was during when my camera was essentially in the shop, so I had no way to film. But I do think it could have raised some red flags about the leagues. Like, are they able to essentially survive? And I think it turned off some of the current markets like Birmingham, like Michigan, Memphis. I don't really even think Memphis could be put into that story there. Houston could be one as well. But when you look at like Boise, Idaho, that we talked about yesterday, there was never talk, from my understanding from their athletic director at Boise State, that there was never talk that they were relocating a team to Boise. They had been under their impression that the league was expanding for Boise, Idaho, and that was the route they were going to go, that they weren't getting a relocated team, they were actually getting a expansion for the league, and it was not in 2026, it was supposed to be in 2027. So then you look at the other markets that potentially were being looked at, which is Louisville. I still think that is a huge contender right now, and I think they are working out the final details of Louisville, and that will be a team for 2026, which will most likely be replacing the Michigan Panthers at this point. That's just my guess. I'm going to kind of stick with that theory on that. But I'm trying to think. There was Boise, Columbus. I feel there was a fourth one. I think Oklahoma City may have been, or Tulsa may have been one. Portland was always kind of rumored in the background. But overall, I could see where it could raise some flags, but I don't know if it necessarily impacted negotiations in the new markets, other than maybe they were having different conversations with new markets and not about relocating a team. Because I do think that despite the fact that most of these cities like Columbus, they obviously know they're getting a relocated team at this point. But like Boise, if you are expecting and have had conversation with the league about a brand new team coming in there, you're looking at brand new coaching staff, a different way of getting players, things like that, and you're not just moving, like, say, for instance, the Houston Roughnecks organization moving to Boise, you're not going to have, again, CJ Johnson, um, or CJ, sorry, not CJ Johnson, Curtis Johnson. I don't know why he called him CJ Johnson, but Curtis Johnson, his staff, and players coming to Boise from Texas. I don't know if it really matters with the UFL or not, but it seems like that's not what was advertised to them to bring a team to that location. I think that's kind of where we take that step back and really look at the theory here. So when we look at UFL shadow theory here, I do think that about 50% of it could be correct. I do think that it could have impacted some negotiation, essentially with like how they were discussing it. And then all of a sudden you had this, oh, we're now relocating. Why are we? You didn't tell us you were relocating your teams. You said you were expanding. I think that could have been a red flag for the league. But overall, though, when it comes to the league announcing Mike Rapoli as the new co-owner in an attempt to save face and increase optimism about the league's future, I do not believe that to be 100 at all. I think this, as comments on the post say, I do think that when you take a step back and really look at it, I think this was something that was happening in the long run. I don't know if Mike Rapoli at one point was supposed to be a silent investor or was one, kind of like we've heard about Qatar Sports, whatever, was a quiet investor in the league going back to 2024. There's a lot of different things that kind of go into all this, but I think him being the face of the league to be more transparent, like we saw yesterday with this post, giving us backside story or like background information on what's going on behind the scenes. I don't think this is any type of basically like attempt to save face. I think that this was kind of their plan all along. And again, I think with Mike Rapoli and Rapoli Stables putting up that money essentially to fund the league and take over the business side of operations, I don't think that was a way to increase optimism of the future of the league. I think that happened organically, and I think that he wanted to be part of this, and to do that, I just don't know if it was more so in the public eye that happened. I do think that could have essentially allowed them to announce it more publicly, and he wanted to kind of have that on-hands approach to being a front leader of the pack, because again, we've heard announcements from Russ Brandon and stuff, and Daryl Johnston and stuff like that in comments with the Columbus organization coming or whatnot. But it seems like they've kind of taken a back step to the public image, and Mike Rapoli has been more the person tweeting out about the league and stuff like that, or posting on X. So I think it's 50-50. I think there could be a little bit of truth to that. But then I think that the truth lies more in the fact that maybe these new markets were led on to believe something else, and then that relocation bomb could have impacted that then pushed back some of these organizations. Again, there's a lot of teams, like we talked about yesterday, that I feel essentially raise questions. If we're only getting 10 teams by 2028, it does question right here the Seattle Sea Dragons. Like, are they coming back? Because there's other areas that really could host a team, and Seattle's just may not be one of them. Who knows at this point? I think it's very interesting to see, but I guess we'll sit back and wait. We're again just under about a month away from finding everything out about the 2026 season and possibly those expansion teams in 2028. Again, I still think Boise, Idaho will be one of those expansion teams based on what I'm understanding of what was presented to Boise State and playing at that stadium. But we'll see. Let me know in the comments what you think about everything, and we'll see you back here on the flip side. Have a great one, everyone.